the Underground Railroad television show, and do a TV show in Chicago that comes on every Saturday night at 10:30 p.m. Central Time. What I want to be discussing today, let me get on to the point, is the mayoral race in Chicago, United States, Chicago, Illinois. And we're going to discuss Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, being indicted. And I'm waiting for political strategists and expert in community to call up Will Crosby, who has he has been a geopolitical strategist and activist in Chicago for years, for years, for years. I happen to know him. I happen to know him, and you know what? He consented to come on, and cannot come. I guess he can call in or nothing. But you know what? But so you like this picture, you like that. You know what? Hey, don't forget to subscribe and give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down with this video right here, and this will be on YouTube and other social media platforms. And this gives you the opportunity to look back in history if you're doing case studies and look at what we were going through, what people were going through in year 2023, the fourth day of April. It gives you the opportunity to do that. So, you know what? So I'm more or less I'm waiting for him to come on, and more or less the news is very, very interesting. It is a lot that is going on right now as we talk. And very fascinating. We live in a time the way news could instantaneously be sent to you by only a moment of seconds. You know what? And I'm sending him the link again. Let's see, and really he'll get it. And the thing is, I'm somebody that is fascinated by the news, and I find out the people that look at my show, they're fascinated by the news. Okay, and I have, hey, how you doing, Mr. Will? Let me make a formal introduction of him. This is Will Crosby of Chicago. He is a political strategist in Chicago, Illinois. And you know what? I've been knowing him for years, and I want to thank you, Brother Will, for the privilege of you coming on my social media platform and coming on my television show in Chicago. I appreciate that. Underground Railroad. Please
All
make an
right,
introduction.
man.
Make
All
an
right,
introduction.
man. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So can you make an introduction of yourself, and then we're going to talk about the Chicago mayoral race, and we will possibly get into Donald Trump. I know that's sensitive to a whole lot of people, so we're okay. But please make an introduction of yourself, please.
Well, my name is
Well,
Will Crosby. I've been involved with politics since I was like 15 years old as a student at Calumet High School,
mhm,
where we worked on creating Afro American studies for as high school students. My classmate was Shaka Khan, matter of fact. Now here I am, 70 years old, soon to be 71. I initially started working in electoral politics when I was 21 years old. I worked as a precinct captain for then Congressman Ralph Metcalf in his run against
mhm,
Richard Daley, old man Richard Daley Mayor,
mhm,
when he had assaulted, a police had assaulted a black
mhm,
doctor named Dr. Odom,
mhm,
and Ralph Metcalf had a falling out with Daley because Daley refused to reprimand the policeman who had beat the doctor up,
mhm,
and then was involved in building the United Black Voters of Illinois. That was in '76.
Mm-hmm.
Went on from there to the National Association of Neighborhood Organizations, where I organized across America
Mm-hmm.
around housing displacement, because at that time there was starting people and minorities, particularly out of cities, particularly around downtown area, removing their housing.
Mm-hmm.
As we can see, in 1980, I started working for Harold Washington again, who I had met in the third ward back in '76. To go
Great
back to
mayor.
the first time he ran in '70s, uh, I supported Harold Washington, but he only got 11,000 votes that time he ran. Back
Mm-hmm.
5 years later, and so almost 6 years later, and ran for mayor in 82. Then we started
Mm-hmm.
working on the campaign. We got Harold elected.
Yeah.
I
Lupin.
then was involved as well with Carol Mosey Brown, where we drew these redistricting maps, and we were able to draw maps that allowed us to create 3 new state representative districts and 1 senatorial district and 2 state reps and 1 Hispanic district for the Hispanics, because the minorities. We actually sued Michael Madigan and the judge in the federal intentionally racially gerrymandered black people.
Yeah.
Uh, so it was for the city of Chicago, and the ward redistricting map was one of the wards that we were fighting over, and in the 15th ward.
Mm-hmm.
And when
Mm-hmm.
we were ward in, but we was able to get the 15th ward and the 37th ward and get the city council.
Yes, sir. The council wars. I remember. You know what?
Well, and then I got one more thing we'll talk about. Then we got 2 more things. We created the sister cities when I worked with the alderman of the 15th ward, and we the John Burge and the police department,
Yeah.
and
Torture people.
the name of the street Fred Hampton
Mm-hmm.
Street on the west side.
Yes. Yes. And you know what, man? You have been busy as it's an old saying. You've been busy as a beaver, but you're not a beaver. But it's just this old saying. And I like to ask you.
I've been working in the field. I
Mm-hmm.
never wanted to be an elected official, but I always, after the murder of Fred Hampton, then we had to uh, get a hold of electoral, because it was those people who were in elected positions that were affecting us the most. Take over those positions.
The mayoral race for Chicago is coming up real soon. I forgot what day it is. It's April the
April 4th, the day Martin Luther King was
April 4th.
murdered.
And you know what? Oh, that's the day Martin Luther King was. Okay. Thank you for educating me about that. Okay. But I want to ask you something. There are 2 candidates that are winning, but um Lori Lightfoot did not retain the opportunity to run again because she didn't get enough votes. Brandon, Mr. Brandon, is running against Paul Vallis. I forgot Mr. Brandon's first name for mayor of Chicago.
Brandon Johnson. His
Hmm.
name is Brandon.
Hmm. And for our listening audience, can you tell them something about Mr. Brandon Johnson and Paul Vallis?
Well,
Man.
let's start with Paul Vallis first. Vallis
Okay.
it was birthed by Richard M. Daley. Now, who is Richard M. Daley? For 22 years, Richard M. Daley removed black people from Chicago public housing in the city of Chicago.
Yes.
And that public housing ran down 22nd Street all the way to 53rd Street, where
Yes.
they were close to people who lived there.
Hmm.
And what did Richard M. Day's cousin. You know his cousin, who his cousin was?
No.
George Bush. And to him and George Bush, every year George Bush would come to Chicago for Daley's birthday party.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And him to help him put public housing on fast track demolition. Demolish
Okay.
those houses. Then he had a fast track demolition for the community. At the same
Yes.
time, during that period, he put in place Paul Valls. Paul Valls had been working as his budget director in the city of Chicago.
Yes.
Director and put him over Chicago Public School after he had cut a deal with Mike Madigan's system over to the mayor. So he
Who was Mike
could have total.
Madigan? Mike Madigan, for people who don't know, was the Speaker of the House for the state of
Correct.
Representatives in Springfield. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Correct. Whole school board to the mayor for mayoral control.
Yes.
So that means he put him in that position. At that time, by getting rid of all those people had to be shut down because of the lack of students who have been displaced outside of Chicago, because most of those people were given vouchers that they couldn't use in Chicago. They had to leave. Okay, so that was one way to decrease the black vote.
Yes.
Okay, so Vallis became the head of the school, but during the time he was the head of school board, so that they could raise the graduation rate, get a lot of people passing people through high school who were not literate. Had a whole group of young people who came out of high school from 95 to not literate. And it shows that they did a report on school students who went to Illinois universities.
Yes.
And particularly the black were failing out of the universities because they couldn't pass the courses.
Mm-hmm.
They got them to let minorities into schools.
Yes.
But what is that?
Mm-hmm.
They were up. They could have him and Daley worked the deal out to get control of the pension funds.
Yes.
And the reason my cousin was a teacher, and they would tell the teachers that we got to cut your salary, you know, so we can take care of his pension. So either you retire or you get a cutback in salary. So a lot of black teachers who have been there for many years and this cut back in salary. So a lot of them retired. My cousin was one of them who retired. Salary back. Because if I retire at a certain level of retirement. I do retire, I retire less money. And so that was the way they got rid of black. And that went on to Gary Chico, who's national mayor, Rahm Emanuel, you know, who was to cover up for Daley.
Yeah.
And then Lori Lightfoot, who had been Ash Daley.
I didn't know that.
Okay, know these relationships, you know what I'm saying? Lori wasn't a good person. I think she was, at the end of her term, she started noticing what her friends were really her enemies. Because she had and put in place some people from Chicago community over some of those departments.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she would have had a better relationship. She started thinking about the southwest side and the west side and how to do something for my community. Lived on the north side. It was very funny that the Q community didn't support her, but supported Vallis. So that to me, in itself, that she didn't get a bigger support base from them.
Mm-hmm.
Her vote count, she got a lot of black people still supported her because they thought she was trying to do it was just too little, too late. And so, I hope our wife, she has a great future. Uh, but the people now we come to Vallis. Here,
Yes.
Vallis. Let's look at what he did. He left Chicago, Philadelphia.
Hmm.
If you talk to anybody in Philadelphia, you go to any newspaper programs, and
Hmm.
mention Paul Vallis' name, they say he was a racist who ran the school board.
Hmm.
Okay,
You know,
if
and
you
you
if
know
you
what?
go to New Orleans with Paul Vallis, you had Paul Vallis who basically, Paul Vallis is a promoter of privatization of schools,
Charter
and we know that
schools. Okay.
it was Republicans who created privatization, which is a new way of nation by creating privatization.
Hmm.
And
You know,
so
before
when you create these,
go ahead,
okay,
go ahead, go ahead.
when you create these charter schools, what happens? You take the most brightest students and you remove them who may not be as bright. Now, when I went to public school, we used to have honor roll students and those who are below being regular students, but they were integrated. And so
Yes.
honor students could help those other students because they could communicate with maybe the teacher, which would actually help the teacher be able to be a teacher easier.
Yeah.
And then,
Yes.
if you remember Ruth Love that Daddy had hired, she started changing the whole. It was like called a new education.
Who was Ruth
And
Love?
so
Is somebody that's looking that don't know who that is?
she used to be the superintendent of schools.
Okay. Okay.
And so I keep telling CTU, but CTU is a union who fights against the board of directors. And most people don't know the CPS, the head of the CPS, of CPS makes $328,000. Members makes
Wow.
between $77,000 and $82,000 as a board member. That
Hmm.
was another perk about the Board of Education. That.
Hmm.
Matter of fact, this last board, just can you imagine? This last board gave about a 70 contract
Wow.
to buy security cameras, but they don't have children. But because they've destroyed public education in such a manner, now is the pipeline, the prison system, because you have all schools that are poor. Just think how they destroyed CVS, a vocational school, different trades in it. They
Hmm.
destroyed Dunbar High School, which had about, and so uh, let's go back. Went from Philadelphia to New
Paul,
Orleans,
Paul
where
Vallis.
he totally
Hmm.
privatized the schools.
Hmm.
And then while in New Orleans, he ran with Clinton, and they stole all the money that was supposed to be given to the people of Haiti. People of Haiti are still living in tents that people gave money for them to help them build houses. Now, Paul Vallis wants to come back to Chicago, which he lives in Palos Heights. They got him uh, when Rahm Emanuel came back to Chicago back in 2010 to run for mayor. They said he had a house that he didn't live in, and he had a little crawl space, like in your attic. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And so now they got this little funny apartment in Bridgeport that they say that Paul Valley, but we know him to
Oh.
live in Palos Heights,
Oh wow. Oh
and
wow.
we know he's a supporter of the CRT. You know what the CRT is?
No, I don't know. That's a union, I believe.
Critical race theory.
Okay.
He spoke to
Yeah, I
a
got.
Republican group down, and, and the critical race theory is about not teaching Black history in this white children feel bad about themselves.
Yeah.
But to tell the history about the history is something that we don't want to tell the children. We want to keep telling them a lie. like there's a Superman and
Hmm.
there's a Batman.
Yeah, I mean,
This or that Columbus found America and he never came to the United, only went to the islands. But again, that's part of the education of the American public is what we're fighting here
hmm,
because we constantly being missing. We kept it's called dumb down process, dumb them
yes,
down, make sure they have no knowledge.
yes.
So
You know what?
to
When you get
complete the Paul Vallis thing, let me be real clear about this. But Paul Vallis is with the FOP, Turn
okay,
Order of Police. The ones who 16 shots in a cover up. The
yes,
police,
I remember.
the FOP who says that if Paul Vallis doesn't win the streets,
Yes. Hmm.
that's who supports and the people who support Paul Vallis. Now let's talk about Johnson.
That's what I was going to ask you. There are many people, you know what, Mr. Brandon, he's picking up momentum, but there are a lot of people that know absolutely nothing about him. And could you
Well,
give us?
Brandon started with a two. They gave him 2% back in now he's running.
Hmm.
He's went from now 2% to for population knows he's running.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, I don't want to know who he is because he's everywhere. He's all
Hmm.
across the west side. He's all across the north side.
Yes.
I
Yes.
don't think this past week it was a multicultural rally of blacks, Hispanic, Asians, and we had Bernie Sanders come in for.
Yes.
We had Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. the third come in.
Hmm.
We had Jesse Jackson there. He came. We
Yes.
had a Hispanic congresswoman from the north side. She came. Congressman Jesse Jackson. I mean, Congressman Jackson. Congressman
Yes.
Presley. We had came in.
Hmm.
So national, a well looked at campaign, and
Yes.
he's becoming a entity in terms of where he sees the community going in terms of making Chicago open for all. He sees he's from the west side of Chicago, which I think really upsets a lot of politicians. A mayor from the west side, because in Chicago, all you would I don't know, would say the north side is one, the south
Yes.
side is two, and the west side would be. And so to imagine the side they think is the lowest side coming to the top, that the west side of Chicago.
Yeah. Sure.
It really upsets a lot of people, and I think it's very important that a young man like is elected. Why? Because little boys are able to see that a black man is a black man to be the mayor of this city of Chicago.
Hey, Harold
You
Watson.
know,
You know what? I'm going to say something. You know what about the election? I thought that, now, this is my mistake. I thought Chewy Garcia was going to pull it out. The only reason I thought that because you know what? There were so many candidates and there was only one Hispanic that was running. And I thought that he was going to win.
yeah, but
But I was
Chewy,
wrong.
see, probably Chewy Garcia has became a congressman. And that's like when Harold was the congressman. Being a congressman is a great job, man. You don't work that much.
Hmm.
You live that very, very high life. You
Hmm.
you sometimes put on these international flights and you go around
Hmm.
the world. I think Chewy just he's got enamored with being in DC, and he really into the local thing is he's like being a national person. I
Hmm.
think Chewy Garcia has big. He wants to be the president of the United States.
I
So
didn't know that.
standing in Congress kind of gives him a national perspective across the country.
Hmm.
So I think
Now,
that was more his issue. But he supports. You know that, right?
he supports what? Can't hear you.
Brandon Johnson. Can you hear me?
Oh, Bill, I hear you now. Yes, yes.
I said Chewy Garcia is,
Hmm.
and so
Hmm.
uh, that's why Brandon won 5 of his Hispanic wards when he ran for mayor over Chewy Garcia.
Okay. And you know
Okay,
what? When you make an assessment of both of the Chicago mayoral candidates to be mayor of Chicago, what are the pros and cons about both of
you got the FOP
them?
and the cause uh, uh, X working together. You got the one that what's the trick in here,
Yes.
and these are the same people who in the community.
Yes.
Both both parties, the FOP and the and they're supporting this guy to be mayor, who we know he's did he's not going to be a physical criminal like that because it's more sophisticated than those other two.
Hmm.
But they
Hmm.
all together. So you say dead fellows, and then you got people like Jesse White,
Yeah.
Wiggles Wilson,
Hmm.
Sambo Sawyer, Goofy Green.
We don't
Uh,
want
I have these guys because it's no way that you can sit
to.
here and tell me. I mean, Willie Wiggle Wilson says
Yes.
no black elected official, no white elected officials support him, no Asian elected officials support him, Hispanic elected officials, but he wants to blame. That's why he went with because no black elected officials, but nobody supported Willie Wilson. He lost
No.
his money. He went from all over Chicago, passing out
Hmm.
money, buy the people's vote.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
insult them thinking that just because everybody remembers Harry used to say, take their money and vote right. Willie
Yeah.
Wilson was not right. Why? This is
Yes.
why they vote for Willie Wilson. He had a history
Yes.
between. Remember, he was with Donald Trump.
I think he's. I think he's a former President Donald Trump supporter. I believe so.
Right.
Yes.
And he was if Vallis is an undercover Republican.
Yes.
So that's what his problem was.
Yes.
You know, was against Harold Washington when Harold Washington ran for mayor.
Hmm.
That I could expect. Bootlicking Barnett, who's the other linked to Jesse White.
Alderman Barnett.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can't call. He's not an alderman to me, so I can't call. I can't call him. I don't live in this world. You know, uh,
Hmm.
Sawyer just he just. I don't understand. I really don't understand Sawyer.
Yes.
That's why I have to call it. He did a Sambo move on us. How do you head up the reparations committee council?
Yes.
How you have been the head of the Black Caucus of the city council? Trying to tell us that you support Paul Vallis.
Mhm. Yeah. Let me say something real quick. For people that are looking at this that don't live in this geographical area of Chicago, Chicago is a blue state. You know what? It is a democratic state. That's what it is. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, for those in the net, I would just say that they're watching this campaign all across them. As Chicago goes the rest of the nation.
Yes.
and the rest
Yeah.
of the nation, America, are suffering. People talk about crime. That was one of Paul Vallis's things. You know that
Yes.
Chicago Police Department actually catches, in terms of murderers, in the last average of 24% of the murderers they catch. 76 of the murderers are still on the street.
It's about Kim Fox, right? Oh, yeah.
No, not Kim
I think you told me.
Fox. No,
Okay.
no, 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 no. I said, let's go.
Okay. Go ahead.
20, only 24% murderers
Hmm.
done have been solved, and they've actually called 76% of the murderers have not. Kim Fox is the one who came in office and who identified that they put 30 for 30 years or plus who had not done the crimes. John
Oh.
Burge. So
Oh,
no,
okay.
I'm not gonna jump on Kim Fox because you got to read. I tell people read is fundamental.
Yes.
And if you're doing a job, you're not reading. She's the one who's exposed this out of jail
Okay.
because these people were ramrodded back, died to bring her on the show and talk with her.
I can't get, you know what? I cannot get home for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, you got to do I think if you got to do proper, they probably didn't say, "Oh, Kim Fox," but where you made it was like dispersion kind of sound. But I felt so. I
Mm.
think that you need to do more research on what Kim Fox is, and then you need to go down there. You're a media person and interview her. Go to her. Be a media man.
You know what I'll put? You know what I will? You know what I will put in another? I will put in another
You got a
request
press release. You got
to.
a press. You got a press card, ain't you?
No, I don't have one.
Go to the
Uh-uh.
city of Chicago and apply for you a press card.
Okay.
You
Okay.
you get a press card. You can go anywhere. CBS, ABC, and NBC go.
Okay. But Kim
I worked
Fox.
in the city. I worked in Chicago. I know how it works in the city of Chicago.
Yeah, I know Gator Bradley. I tried to get him to give me access, but it just didn't work out. But I got you though. I got you.
The,
I
the
got you.
city of Chicago and request how do I get a press card and tell them what you're with.
Okay. Okay. It, you know what, Mr. Crosby, so you know something like to ask you. In Chicago, why were there so many schools of color that were shut down? Why?
Like I just told you, Daly went into this place. See, not just the 600 moved from the public house, but 500,000 black people and community line, Lawndale, East Garfield. Those where you see all these vacant, those used to be houses. I grew
Yes.
up in Inglewood. I grew up in Inglewood. That's when I first started in Inglewood,
Okay.
and I watched King march there in '66.
Mm-hmm.
Right, launches march out of Inglewood into Gage Park.
Mm-hmm.
Right there is Peoria. That's where Dr. King started. I was a little boy. I never forget. They say y'all gonna march rocks at them people. At that
Yes.
time, you couldn't go past Racine. It was like a race, and you know them white people back there. They wasn't the kind of white people that's gonna be like nice to you back in the '60s. You know they'll beat you to death. And so
Those were the days.
we said,
Those were the days. Almost segregation.
look, we had the Nazi party on 71st Street, bro, in their uniforms.
I think Muhammad bought that place on Crow.
Yeah,
Okay.
he bought the place that used to be their headquarters.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Matter of fact,
Yes.
that was the ward that we took with Harold Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Our brothers, young and the rest of the community elected a woman named the 15th Ward, which knocked the Nazi party out.
Wow.
And what made her really start when me and Marlene were working at the University of Illinois. Tell me these stories how she lived right there, 1 block from Western. How the white balloon full of urination at the children.
Wow, man.
The real problems over there because they were getting the whites were getting so mad that the black people they started to cross Western and buy houses. So that was like in 1980. She was telling me these stories, and so we ran her for office. I think for the first time in 1983.
Yes.
She was the secretary. I said, I'm going to run you for office. She said, I ain't never ran for office. That's all right. We put our campaign together. And we ran.
Yes.
And we ran 6 times. We won.
How many times?
6.
Wow.
Wow. Because they kept having special. First we ran, it was when the redistricting happened. Right before redistricting happened. Then we redistricted. Then we had a special election because the guy who was the alderman got put in jail. And run again, and it was 4 times, so it wasn't 6. Years just get old, go back to years. And so, why Mayor Johnson? Why we need a Mayor Johnson? See, when you ask people, it's because.
Can you move your head over? Can you move your head over just a little?
Oh, excuse me.
Okay, but go ahead.
I'm trying to. Oh, there I go. Okay.
Okay.
There we go. You know, so when you talk about he's young, he's vibrant, he's I'm an old man, but I don't think an old man who's older than me should be. I just think that Chicago needs a new vision. I think it's time for old people like myself to sit back and be counselors, but not try to. We have a mayor sitting up there going to sleep on us. So
it sounds like
Ronald, when you get older,
like Ronald Reagan.
I mean, he already 72, so he'll be 76 in a moment. I mean, we got to be realistic. We need somebody who's young enough to do the work need to be done. You know what I'm saying? And
yes.
And so the problem with the other guy is he's with the old guard. The old guard is so communities.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
So
look what they did with the TIF fund money.
Yeah.
You remember
the
TIF fund money?
Former President Ron Emanuel. Go ahead.
Yeah, he took all the TIF fund money and gave it to downtown. That money was supposed to be going into. It never came into the communities. It went to the downtown businessmen.
Yeah. Let me tell for the people that are looking at this, what is TIF money? TIF money is for areas that are disenfranchised, that are not doing well economically, to bring it up from the dust to the sin. But go ahead.
Have you seen our communities brought up?
Yeah, on Chicago. I live on the east side of Chicago. I know.
South Shore, the South Shore that you remember when you were young.
I remember.
Do you remember the 79th Street looked the same?
No.
The 75th Street is a lot of.
No, I didn't live over here. I didn't live over here then, but I've been over here 25, 30 years. It almost looks the same.
Yeah, but it's because all that 25, 30 years, Daley was in office. And
yes.
And it got worse. Daley was in office for 22 years, lost for 8 years. That's 30 years. And then we had Lightfoot for the last 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
and
Who?
she had a power through, because you can believe that when she came in government, just like I'm telling you a story about when Harold Washington, James
Mm-hmm.
Byrne had removed the night that they lost. James Byrne lost 4
Yeah.
18-wheelers up to City Hall. Hear me now. 4 8 of the doors at City Hall, and removed everything of anything of the building. When Harold came in, they found uh, just the paper clips.
Yes.
They had to actually
So,
go reconstruct.
shoot, what happened? You know what? I don't know what happened, and you know what? Talking to Will Crosby, there he is. He's back.
Yeah, I got cut off
Okay.
for some reason. I don't know what
Okay.
happened.
You know,
But
and, mhm.
when Harold came in, we found a fund called the ABC Fund.
Yes.
It was $21 million in this ABC fund. So the mayors are going around different heads of departments, because he still had the old heads before he replaced them,
Yes.
asking them, where does this money go to? Does it go to your department? Everybody said, I don't know what that money is.
Yes.
They had been having a slush fund since the old man daily generation. And they put it under ABC, and that was how they could steal the money out of, they give out contracts, dummy contracts out to ABC fund.
Mm.
So Harold put that back into the general fund, and closed the ABC fund off. So I can imagine when Lori Lightfoot came in, what information she had to dig through probably the first 2 years just to find out what's going on in the government.
Wow. I can see something. There's a lot of people that's looking on YouTube. For some reason, they're not calling in. But I want to ask you something. For the average citizen in Chicago, I think you've already said it. Who are you endorsing for mayor of Chicago? Who are you
The
endorsing, and
people's
and,
choice.
and, and why?
I'm endorsing the people, because we need fresh, vibrant leadership in this city.
Yes.
We don't need a bunch of me, gray hair,
Hmm.
not tied to a bunch of corrupt people,
Yes.
people who have our people in the city of Chicago, and not just the corporate people. Not giving
Okay.
all the rich people constantly all the dollars.
This is one question that's just puzzling me. And I'm listening to what you're saying about Paul Ballas. I'm wondering, how did he get all of these endorsements for prominent politicians of color, like Jesse White? Think.
Well, Jesse White has always been a puppet. You remember George Dunn?
Yes, I do.
You know who George Dunn used to head the Cook County Democratic Party, and he
Yes.
was over the 40s. He brought up Jesse White. Jesse
Wow.
White was his little, and so Jesse White was a tumbler. He was tumble. He would turn. Show him how you flip, Jesse, and Jesse would flip for him. Everybody in the neighborhood to be flippers.
And Pat
And
Quinn.
Pat Quinn, come on, Harold Washington had to fire Pat Quinn.
A lot of people don't know that history. Wow.
You got to know your history. You better know your history. Look, don't take my word. Look it up. Harold Washington fires Pat Quinn
And
a
and
bit for being
Congressman
incompetent.
and Congressman Bobby Rush
Bobby
already.
Hush, Bobby Hush, the man that's supposed to go to the community and spent it, and then he had to be quiet. He could easily get over there and hug on Vallis. You saw that picture of Bobby Hush hugging Vallis. Oh, Daddy, you know I love you.
I saw, you know what, a picture that I did saw. It was Jamal Green. He was sitting by Paul Vallis while Paul Vallis was eating chicken.
He
He was
brought, yeah,
just,
the
he
new,
was,
don't bring him a chicken in the bucket, just bring some Harold's fried chicken.
yeah, and, yeah.
Yeah.
We got somebody that want to join in, and I think they got something to say. Okay,
All right, then come on.
Robert, go ahead, Robert. How you doing?
Oh, good. I'm just tuning in. I missed most of your conversation here.
Okay, well, I have Will Crosby on it.
Yeah,
Thank you for
yeah.
tuning in.
Will sent me the link.
Oh, all praises to the Lord. So, tell us, do you got a question for him? And thank you for tuning in. Thank you.
What is the topic? Brandon Johnson?
We're talking about the mayor of Chicago, who would be the best mayor of Chicago, and we, giving questions to Mr. Crosby.
Okay.
So,
Well, there's only one. There's one answer to that. Brandon Johnson. And of course, we know the history. That old parable about the snake frozen by the river. You take
yes.
it home and thaw it out, and the
Mhm.
snake bites. That's what we have in Paul Vallis.
Yeah, you got but do you got a question for Mr. Crosby? So he can
Uh,
address.
let's see. Question for Mr. Crosby. I know him quite well. Let's see. What for a black agenda? How can we? I know that other groups have sent in their agendas to Brandon Johnson, and I know I listened to Dr. Claude Anderson said these politicians and elected officials need money to keep their programs and their agendas going.
Mm-hmm.
How do we raise funds for Brandon Johnson from the grassroots?
Good question.
Well, I think at this stage of election, so I don't know if raising funds is actually going to happen. But if you have some money, please. I think that the biggest thing is that our participation is very important. Not sit on the sideline and be part of this history. It's involved in his campaign. I think that if you look at Brandon's campaign, we're working in his behalf
Mm-hmm.
and getting them have given money. Small donations is good too. Send it to Brandon. I wouldn't tell you not to send it because you have to be supportive. This ain't on freebies. Now we have to demand that Brandon gives us in his government that we can run. And why do I
Yeah.
say department? Because he was able to make 190 black millionaires.
All right.
And
Okay.
you have a $20 billion government here. And there's dollars all around. I remember I worked on a contract with a company where they paid me $500 a day for 10 days.
All right.
Yes.
That's the kind of contracts they have in the government.
Mm-hmm.
Now I said to myself, so they paid us $50,000. The company must at least made $100,000 contract he was given that company, and they pay us $5,000. So and we were reviewing proposals. Okay, so I know what the government do. After that situation for this company, I then got a job with the city of Chicago, and this money flows through the city of Chicago.
Yeah.
Then I worked in the Chicago City Council. I was like, whoa. And
Mm-hmm.
Harold only has $3 billion budget. Now that budget is not quadrupled.
All right.
You know, still he'll have 1 year still running the Board of Education
Mm-hmm.
because we have to get prepared for this elected school board that's coming up in 20. Was it 20?
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to be installed incrementally. So I forgot
I
the
know we need to get prepared for that
yes.
because that's going to be a big fight. Even when we talk about voter registration, we're the most registered. We have over 600,000 black on the polls. We're the largest group of registered voters in Chicago, largest in population now. Because again, they moved from other places, but that's good because they're not the old line whites that we've done. They're much more progressive in their thinking.
Okay.
They
You know,
they can't. They're not
you know,
most of those people who are against. It's like the unions, fire union. Bob, you work for the fire department. Can you tell us about the fire union?
Well, it's one of the most racist unions. It comes under the AFL-CIO also. The fire department union fought with Richard J. Daley to keep blacks off the job in the fire department. You know,
okay,
this occurred with the police departments also because they lost lawsuits. There was a consent decrees, actually 3 on the city of Chicago, which addressed the fire department, police department, was what they call public works, which is streets and sands in Chicago. They had a hiring plan that came from the federal government. Daley refused to comply with those consent decrees. So the federal government cut funding to the city of Chicago, and Daley went to the banks, borrowed the money to keep the city's finances going. And because he told them he didn't need that money, they could take it and stick it where the sun doesn't shine.
wow,
So the corporations realized that this was hurting the city of Chicago. So
yes,
Daley went. Well, he had a doctor's appointment on December 20th, 1976.
yes,
He came out of that doctor's office feet first. Apparently, he got a coffee cocktail there. He didn't make it out. So
wow,
immediately, 3 months later, well, no, the following that same month, Belandic became mayor.
yes.
And Belandic said, we're going to comply with the consent decrees. So that was already on the agenda.
Can I ask you something? Can you explain to the listening audience what is the consent decree? Because there's someone that does not know.
Simply, a consent decree, just put it in simple terms, it's a court order. It's an order that comes from the judge. You must do certain things. Like the city of Chicago Police Department has a consent decree. They have to follow those guidelines. But I understand, I heard earlier today that it's difficult for them to comply with that consent decree. I'm trying to stay on the camera. So that's a court order that comes down from the federal courts.
Yes. Okay.
And the city has never complied with the consent decree that deals with the hiring on the police, fire, and streets and sands. So, and people, well, when Daley, the year before Daley left office, he asked the federal government to remove that consent decree, the Shackman, from the city of Chicago. And they told him he was not compliant.
Yes.
So,
What is the Shackman? What is the Shackman?
Can't
What
hear
is
you.
the Shackman decree?
the Shackman consent decree dealt with prohibitive political hiring, firing, promotions, anything that dealt with the types of activities within the political mainstream in Chicago. Patronage? It wiped out patronage. And remember, when Harold Washington was mayor, he said patronage was dead. He said, "I know because I danced on his grave or called up." And he didn't realize patronage was a vampire. Came back out. They use patronage now with these unions. I'm sorry, not with the unions, but with these contractors. They divvy out contracts to the white community, and they hire their people. When they were
Yeah.
doing the political hiring in the city of Chicago, that's
Yeah.
knocked out. It may come back for all we know, but
You know,
that's
go ahead. Go ahead. I want to ask Will something when you finish. Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
No, the consent decree, which after Rahm Emanuel was elected, he got Michael Shackman himself, the attorney who filed the lawsuit. to declare that the city was compliant with the Shackman consent decree. So the federal government removed it when they received his word or his compliance letter that the city of Chicago was now compliant with the Shackman consent decree. So they removed it, but they can bring it back. That's the court order. It's still alive. They can go back and bring evidence that the city of Chicago is still not compliant with that consent decree.
You address something that I want to ask both of you.
Okay.
Now, y'all correct me, and I think that it was a lot of people that did not understand that when Harold Washington, when Chicago Mayor Harold Washington became mayor of Chicago, he
Yes.
got rid of the Shackman decree, and I think there's some people that did not understand it, didn't think that it was in the best interest of people on the south and east side of Chicago. Was he wrong for doing that, or right? Or we just don't understand?
Did you say Harold got rid of the Shackman?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
No, he did not.
Okay. A lot of people. I thought he did.
Harold was the one who signed the consent decrees. They were never signed. He signed there were three. There was Shackman, Quinn, and Albrecht decrees that when we went to Washington, D.C. to file 86 complaints for firefighter applicants who were denied getting a job from the
Okay.
1995 class.
Okay.
Harold Washington signed those consent decrees. They were not signed. They were there before.
I thought he got rid of it. Okay.
They were there when Vladimir was mayor,
Daley
when
was there.
James Byrne was mayor. They never signed it. Harold signed it. His signature's on it.
I got you. Yeah, I'm getting educated, and my audience is getting educated. I want to. You know what? I want to. Both of you have stated. I believe that it's in the best interest of Chicago to elect Mr. Brandon as the mayor of Chicago.
Yes.
I got that. I got that in my listening audience has that. I want to move on to Donald Trump unless y'all have something else that y'all want to say about the election.
Yeah, I want people to go out tomorrow, vote early because they're predicting a storm on Tuesday in the PM. So go out, vote early. I would tell you vote often, but it's against the law to vote often. But make sure you vote early.
That may be happening in some parts of Chicago, voting often. Who knows?
Yeah, but we have to watch. Some of them do try to vote often, but you can
Yeah.
only vote early. Now that's
Right.
legal.
Yeah.
And I would just say that we're fighting the cabal, and we're gonna beat this cabal down. We're not gonna
Yes.
let the cabal re-raise his head. It's on a slow death, and we're gonna send it to his grave.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
In the
And
spirit of Martin Luther King and Harold Washington, we're gonna pounce on his grave.
yes. 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 So you got anything else to say about Brandon, sir, Mr. Rock?
Well, I say that the election day, April 4th, that is the 53rd? No, it's longer than that. Since Dr. King was assassinated. That was the day he was assassinated on April 4th, 1968.
Yes.
So that day, he was assassinated 1 month and 3 days after the Kerner Commission report was released to the public. And that was telling, that was damning to this country and to the Johnson administration. But it spelled out the atrocities that were occurring in the black community, because that year, 1967, when he assembled that commission with Governor Otto Kerner heading it up,
Yes.
their findings came back and pointed out that the problem was not the black community. It was a white community. They said they created it, financed and condoned it and maintained it. And Samuel Yet came out with a book in 1971
Yes.
after he reviewed that Kerner Commission report. But then the report also said you have a choice. You can assist the black community in coming out of the problems created by the white community, or get rid of them. Samuel
Yeah.
Yet's book the choice spelled it out that the government had planned on eliminating the black people in the system in this country, and we're on express road to doing it now. And with all the incarcerations, with the deaths from overdose and drugs, the shootings that's
Yes.
occurring with the guns that are dropped in the community, they've turned us on ourselves, and our people need to be educated through your mainstream, through your
Yes.
media outlet, that we
Yes.
need to put down the guns against each other, put down the
Yes.
drugs.
That's
Uh,
right. I think that drug thing is real interesting. There's
yeah,
a movie that you need to watch called uh, it's on Tubi. It says drugs is a weapon,
yeah,
Yes.
and so
I
they
watched
use.
it. Go ahead.
You saw it, and
I
so
watched it. You gave it. I went on and found it. I pulled it up.
it's a very interesting movie about, and they go 1940s, and they
Okay.
talk about
Um,
how the CIA drugs and how they use drugs to poison Paul Robeson, to try to poison
Yeah,
Malcolm X, Martin
that's
Luther
right.
King, Fred Hampton, and to have even poisoned their own SD.
I'm gonna look it up on. I'm going to make it my business to look it up on YouTube. I'm going to make it my business.
Yes.
I want to switch. And you know what? I see there are a lot of people that are watching on YouTube, but they're not calling in. But that's okay. But you could put something in the chat room. I want to go. I want to go to Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump. And the thing is, he has been indicted, and he will be going from Mar-a-Lago to New York Tuesday. Do you think that anybody is above the law? Do you think that they're picking on Donald Trump intentionally? Because you got red states and you got blue states, and there's different people that have different perspectives about Donald Trump. What do you think is going on? Do you think that prosecuting attorney is he's going too far? They wouldn't do that to the average person.
Well,
Well,
there are people. Go ahead, Will.
you go first. You want to go first?
No, I was going to say there, Brother Clifton asked the question: is anyone? There are people who are above the law, and once you get outside of a certain period of limitations, statute of limitations, you can't touch them. Will shared this with me that once these elected officials who've committed crimes and they're gone for after 5 years, you can't touch them. We
Yes.
know Daley wrecked the pension funds in the state of Illinois with his
Yes.
family, and
Yes.
they're struggling now to catch up with that because pretty soon those pensions are going to run out because they've been raided. Police pension fund alone, they removed $86 million from that police pension fund invested in real estate, which belly up
Hmm.
years ago, and that money is lost. I asked one police officer, a woman, what are they going to do about it? That was about 15 years ago. She said, "Oh, we're not worried about that. The state's going to put that money back." Now the
Hmm.
state's broke.
Okay.
The pension funds. I attended these programs where they were choosing a casino to place here in Chicago. And this woman who was out of the mayor's office, she's running for alderman in the Fifth Ward. I think her name
Hmm.
is Tony Town
Hmm.
Home. Home.
Yeah.
She was on the stage saying that they were going to use the revenue coming out of the casinos to furnish the police and fire pension funds in the city of Chicago. So it's a
Yes.
gamble how these pension funds are going to be funded if that's the truth.
Hmm.
So
But
go ahead.
I want to get back to
Okay,
Donald
Donald
Trump.
Trump.
I got
Donald
you.
Trump.
I got you
Let me
on
talk
that.
about Donald
Thank
Trump,
you.
the man who's supported by the moral majority, the unmoral president, the adulterist, the man who likes to buy prostitutes,
Yeah.
who's the president. You know,
And
matter of
grab
fact, I
women's
think he
crotches.
even got the brothel.
Let
You
me say
know,
this to all the people out here. You know what? All of this is factual. You know what? Because He has done his research. So we're not making up anything. But go ahead, brother.
So here we got people who say they're the moral majority of people who do these mass shootings across America. Always believe in guns, 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 and then people want to talk about crime. But you put more guns on the street than is needed. Chance to live in Africa, and it was the most peaceful place to ever live because nobody. I didn't have to worry about looking over my shoulder 5 minutes and who's gonna be shooting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they talk about Chicago. Even Donald Trump tried to talk about Chicago. But 28 in murder. We're not number one. We're number 28 in the murder.
Yes.
So let us not be confused. Donald Trump, just think about what he did to his own people who worked at his place. When he was building up, was that place that the casino place, Jersey?
Yeah.
He filed bankruptcy for the workers, didn't pay the work. Or what his father used to do when his father told all the Jewish people in New York and Scandinavia, and he actually was from Germany. And when his father was a party, folks act like they can't remember
Yes.
who is Donald
Yes.
Trump. Immigrants, but he is from an immigrant family. He's only the third generation immigrant. He hasn't been in America longer than none of us, our families.
Mm-hmm.
And who thinks that he is, because he ain't our gift. He created a platinum program for the so-called black and materialized.
Wow. 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 So he is not above the law. He is not above the law. And my question is, other question is, do you think that they should, as he has been indicted for what he has done against Sonny Daniels? I think Sonny, what's her name? I forgot her name. Okay, the young.
Let's talk about him being indicted.
Okay.
There's several um, lawyers who are on it.
Mm-hmm.
The lawyer who actually brought the indictment, he went to a grand jury, made up of like 20 different lawyers.
Yes.
Okay. And
I don't know what happened to the guy, brother. Okay.
he probably tried to get back on. He probably cut him off.
Oh, okay.
That grand jury is a group of attorneys who made these rules, the attorney to make a decision about what they thought he did wrong. And Donald Trump has the audacity to tell the attorney, he got the attorney physically. I mean, he already did the January 6th, those 3 officers, what we so-called, we love the police, but you killed 3 officers, the nation's capital.
Yes.
And he should be going to jail for that, for insurrection.
Yes. Yes. So Donald Trump, do you know what? So you know what, Mr. Robert, what do you think about Donald Trump and him being indicted? I got the name not right. Sonny Daniels for the hush hush money. You don't think that they went back 7 years, but he has other indictments that are coming up against him. And my question to both of you is, if you have these indictments, how could you qualify to run for the highest office in the land in the United States of America?
Donald Trump doesn't believe in the state. He's been a criminal. He was a criminal. The Republic. When you support idiocracy and fullest, look how he got us into the pandemic. He kept telling people, "Oh, pandemic is no pandemic," and then all of a sudden, all these people start getting sick. he went and got
I
him.
don't. You know what? Can I say something? The pandemic. I don't even want to. Can I tell people why I don't want to talk about the pandemic? Because you know what? I was thrown off of YouTube because I said something about the pandemic and said something about the virus. So I don't even. You know,
Just
they kicked me
saying
off.
that he kept telling people it didn't exist, but then
Yes.
we see it, all those people were dying. But he went and got him a cocktail of drugs. If you remember, I said it. Oh, the president just. But he's telling people it don't exist. Well, why you get a cocktail of drugs? You said it didn't exist. Why everybody else?
And
So I'm just
let me
saying
say
he's such a
something.
hypocrite.
Let me say let me say
A
something,
man
brother.
who's a hypocrite, man.
Yeah. Let me say something real quick to the people out there that people, if you want to get the shot, get it. If you don't want to get, this is a disclosure. You want to get the virus shot, get it. If you don't want to get it, that's up to you. But go ahead, brother. Uh-huh.
Well, I ain't talking about the side at all. I'm talking about the hypocrisy and tell the truth.
Okay.
A
Okay.
man who stole people because he used the legal game of he went bankrupt, so $50 million a year on his taxes. So he spent up all then filed bankruptcy as it's got capital losses. That's what they call it. And for 20 years he got back $50 million. At the same time, he who worked for him, who did all the carpentry, the electrician,
Yeah.
the little ladies, none of the people got paid.
That's true. That's true.
Because he got
That is true.
so here we
Listening
got
all
a man. He got a man who makes who flies private planes, owns all kind of real estate, as a slum landlord in New
yes.
York. Like I
Yes.
said, you got to know he was a slum landlord who lied when the Jewish people were coming in as he was telling me he was from Scandinavia. While all at the same time, the money he was getting from them, he was because he was part of the
It's,
American Nazi Party. Back in, but folks don't read. When you don't read the fundamental thing, and I really thank my parents because they gave me a good foundation. Because my first 8 years, and so you learn how to read programs. When I was in public school, I was kind of shocked because I was seeing this something they couldn't read it all. And you've been to school long as I had been, and it was like I can't really what's that word because they're not being educated all about create. That's why I say when you talk about privatization of schools, new form of being able to remove whites having to go to school with black and minority students.
yes.
So
Yes.
Donald Trump is a proponent of that because he's out to school with Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan created the drug war.
Yeah, I remember. For
He's
the crack
out to
coke.
school with Nixon,
You
and
know
so
what?
when you go.
Mhm. Good. I'm listening to you. I'm listening to you. I am listening to you. I don't know what happened, and you're gonna probably have to come back in.
Okay, because you was frozen. I was wondering where you was at.
It might be YouTube. They algorithms or something else. You'd be surprised, brother.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay.
I mean, never be surprised. Just keep working through it. I mean, nobody wants you talking about truth. When you talk
Yes.
about truth, it's a problem.
You know what? Could I share this?
I was watching the Fred Hampton Jr. show, and
Mhm.
they constantly breaking his show up. I'm like, boy, they really don't want to talk about the prison situation. They want to talk
No.
about black people being locked up.
You know what, brother Will. You know what? I had a guest that had said something about certain people's color, uh, preferences, and you know what? They threw me off YouTube for like 2 weeks. I was like, what? What?
Well,
I didn't understand.
Look, I've been put on. I've been on Facebook times. They told me I'm bullying. Why a white guy called me to go, told me to go to the Planet of the Apes, and I told him you look more like apes than we do. And
Nope.
they put me. They called me a bully. I said, you called me a bully? And he the
Uh,
one called. He told me to go back to the Planet of the Apes.
wow,
How you
wow,
see that?
wow. We
And all I responded to was, you look more like an ape than I do.
we all come from God.
Yeah,
Listen,
we do, but for every response, there's a response.
I'm trying to play in the middle.
You
Okay,
can't play in the middle. Life don't allow you to play in the middle.
alhamdulillah.
You can't walk on. You can't walk on the fence.
Yes,
People who walk on the fence get shot back from both sides.
I agree. I
No, you
agree.
can't walk on the fence. You got to
But
take it. You got to take a position.
yeah, I
Walking on the
understand.
fence gets you messed up because you have both sides at you. You can't
You know
be
what?
on the fence. Anybody on the fence is nothing but a shooting target.
You know what I would say with all due, you know what I would say. I love YouTube, but they need to come up with an alternative to YouTube where you can express your opinions and express your views, whether it's
There's a
whether
black site out here that's doing what YouTube's doing. You just got to find it.
yeah. And you know
You
what
know?
this in the norm or out of the norm. I think because you know what, I really don't believe in censorship because I think that an individual, whether I agree with them or not, they should have the ability to express it because
But
I
you know,
have
once
no
they create, it's once they create the internet. You know, just not to get off the subject, but once they create the internet, you know who controls, who owns all the internet, right?
tell us.
Well, when the CIA, which they used the internet for 50 years before they gave it to the general public,
Hmm.
and the guys who were working for the CIA at the time, they left working for the CIA, and they're the ones who sell you your website.
Wow. Wow. You know what I remember Alderman, you know what former Alderman Virgil Jones used to tell me that. And I miss that guy too. He used to be my co-host. So when we talk about Donald, you know what? When we talk about Donald Trump, he will be in New York on Tuesday. Do you think that he should be fingerprinted like everybody else? Do you think that he should be
Uh,
put in handcuffs like everybody else, and he should be a
well, you
mugshot?
know, they don't generally put people in handcuffs who are elected officials just immediately.
Okay.
They kind of give elected officials a little, or former elected officials a little bit benefit of the doubt that they're not going to be running away.
Hmm.
And so, as long as he shows up and doesn't miss court, he doesn't have to worry about being handcuffed.
Do
But
you go ahead? I'm sorry.
but we have to hear all the different things that's going to come out in terms of all the charges that are being brought against me. They say that there's 30 different charges.
Mhm.
And then, you know, those charges could lead to other charges.
Mhm.
And so, you know, it becomes like a snowball effect.
Mhm.
When they hit you with that many charges, generally one of them you're going to be found guilty on.
Mhm.
You know, it's an old thing like what the feds generally do when the U.S. Justice Department comes after someone. They
Mhm.
hit them with a whole bunch of charges.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of pretty too hard to escape all those charges that you won't get convicted on some of those charges. So I
My-
pretty much think that he's going to get convicted.
mhm.
And then you can have other states like Georgia. They're going to give him for tampering with an election.
Mhm.
You know, so he's got. And Georgia's a red state, so you know, that's why you got them trying to take the rights of blacks in the South away. You
Yes.
know, even in Florida, the governor already passed a
The
law
sentence. Mhm.
not to
Mhm.
teach black history in
Yeah.
the schools.
Mhm.
So they want you black people to disappear. They don't want like y'all just non-existence.
Yeah.
Like y'all just been happy all these 400 years in America.
Mhm. When we speak of that, do you think why is it that no Republican has said anything negative about Donald Trump, even though these indictments have taken place and the insurrection has taken place? Why is it that no Republican has spoken out and made a
Well,
condemnation?
Well, some intimidation is what Donald Trump lives with.
Okay.
He's the intimidator.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's some who believe that he was sent to them through the Bible. The majority of so-called moral majorities guys,
Okay.
those guys who tell you that Jesus was a white man but came from a black country,
Yeah.
you know,
Gotcha.
those
Gotcha.
guys, so they only think white is right and white is might, and they call them the brutes. You ever heard of
Oh,
the brutes? They beat you up and take whatever they want. If you don't go along with them, they'll beat you down. I
oh.
told people, Donald Trump reminds me of a movie. Maybe you've seen it before, Gangs of New York.
Oh, yeah, I saw gangs in New York. Yes.
When he talks about the immigrants, he sounds like that.
Hmm.
I'm the real American.
Mhm.
You're just an immigrant. But you was an immigrant too, 2 generations before that. Now all of a sudden you're a real American. That's
Mm.
hypocritical in
Mhm.
terms of what he's talking about.
Mhm.
And so uh, it's so interesting because in the 1800s the Republican Party was a more progressive party,
Yes.
and then after Roosevelt back in the 1930s during the Depression,
Yes.
when Roosevelt started talking about putting food in people's mouths, and the Republicans wasn't speaking up on that because again at the time still Republicans were still a money party.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
so when Roosevelt, who had been a rich person, people left the Republicans, went to the Democrats,
Mhm.
and then started talking about giving out stuff to the working class people.
Mhm.
All the whites start slowly over the next 30, 40 years leaving the Democratic Party and becoming Republicans.
Yes.
So there's a right wing party that cares less about black people unless you're just a docile puppet.
Mhm.
You don't ask for too much. You stay in your place. And,
You
and
know what's
so,
in- you know what's interesting? Blacks used to start it out in the Republican Party. That's
you're
interesting.
right. But you remember what happened? They put them all out of office. We had all these black Republicans, and they worked to get them out of office. Then there were the white Southern Dixiecrats,
Okay.
and what they call it, the ones they call the red states today.
Yes.
They were the white Southern Dixiecrats. So they
Okay.
really never were Democrats or Republicans, even though when you go back to like 1820, things like
Yes.
1820s,
Yes.
they used to be known as the Republican Democratic Party. Before
Yes.
they broke up into the Republican Democratic Party about 30 years later. But
Hmm.
in the 1850s, they broke apart. The Republican Democratic Party became a Republican separate party and a Democratic separate party.
And
So you got
cut.
most people know the history of America because again, most schools don't really teach history. I
Yes.
just had the ability and a chance to be in the university and to study history and to know the difference.
Yes.
And so I know more about Europeans because I went to a Catholic school
Okay.
and I had to learn all about white people as a
Okay.
child, even to the point of having to learn Latin, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa, you know. And so I know that they want to keep our people. That's why they only want us to learn one language. If you
Okay.
blow my ear, kufu, but they don't want you to know nothing about because as long as you don't know who you are, you think in their terms. They say language is the way you think. And so a lot of black people have a problem with thinking because they're not thinking in their natural tongue. They're
Okay.
having to work through this English language. And
Hmm.
it's a middle struggle, even though people don't know it is. A lot
Yes.
of times, so that's how we have ebonics in our community, where we speak English a little bit different than most folks. You know what
Yeah.
I mean, man?
Yeah. And you know what? And let me ask you. Hey, those are great points. I'd like to ask you, what do you think will be the outcome of the case with former President Donald Trump?
Like I
And
said, I think he'll be convicted off of one of those 30 charges, man. I don't think he's going to pass with every one of the charges.
Mm-hmm.
Will he get convicted on the felony charge? Well, that's to be seen because people think it's going to be a national charge, but I think he's going to get convicted on a state of New York violation of
Mm-hmm.
election law.
Mm-hmm. We have a presidential election coming up, and I do believe that even though former President Donald Trump has been indicted, I believe that I don't believe that there's a Republican that could beat him.
Well, no, but
And
if he
my
gets if he loses on a felony, I don't think he's eligible to run.
Oh, okay.
And
And
that's why I said I think if they're not gonna. Everybody's trying to say they're going to bring a case on a federal level. No, I think they're going to bring election law. He violated to the state of New York, and that's the felony he's going to receive.
and
See?
you know something, if hypothetically, if it is between the presidential election in 2024 between Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump, who do you think would be a better steward
But you
of
know,
the
I told
United
you what I
States?
think about old people running anything, man.
Mhm.
You know, so I'm a reserve my thing because I've already told you. I think it's time for young people. I think
Oh,
they both too old. That's why America is crumbling apart because we got too many old people running stuff.
okay.
You look when we had a young president, he had to wind up trying to keep it all together. Obama's only job was to keep the economy flowing because it had went to when Bush left office, it was getting ready to crash totally.
Hmm.
Remember, he came in, all the banks went down.
Yes.
You see, people forget when people get elected, they're cleaning up the bad stuff before them.
Yes.
So when Biden got in, he had to clean up all the bad stuff. Can you imagine the regulation on the banks that was put in place by Obama?
Yes.
Trump took those regulations off. Now here we are back again at the banks talking about they're getting ready to crash. But that's because you took the regulations off when you were in office to protect the banks from doing what they're doing presently.
Yes.
Do you know that China and Brazil are not accepting American dollars? If they don't pay them in gold, they won't do business with America.
Yeah, I know. I know. And they made a deal with Saudi Arabia too,
And
and
and, and, and Russia as well. That's one of the reasons they're
Venezuela.
in Ukraine having this fight.
And you know what? There are a lot of things. There are a lot of things that are going on. There are a lot of people that don't know anything about it. But I want to ask you to wrap things up. You say get out and vote, and why should we vote for Mr. Brandon for people that live in Chicago?
Well, the reason that I vote, man, I
You
don't know about
can't
you,
see
but
your face. Go ahead. Mhm.
I was involved with voting rights as a child.
Okay.
Back
Can
in the
you move your face up with the phone over
okay,
there?
I was involved with voting rights as a child.
Mhm.
My parents and my grandparents and my great grandparents and my great great and my great great and didn't have the right to vote. And so I don't vote for myself. I vote to remember that my grandparents who were slaves in this country, or enslaved, excuse me, enslaved in this country, were not given the right to be a full citizens in this country. And so as full citizens, we have a responsibility as black men and women never to miss the vote because
Yeah.
Dr. King and many of our people died to get us the right to vote.
Yes.
So that's the reason I vote, not because it's an election. I vote because they did not want us to vote. They didn't
Yes.
want to hear what we had to say. Remember
Yes.
you used to have the pastor. They put so many jelly beans in the bowl and tell me
You
how
talking
many
about
jelly beans in the bowl.
Jim Crow law? Okay.
Oh yeah. So that's why I vote. And so I tell I like to speak for my community. Black people, we have a responsibility to our ancestors to vote, not to ourselves, to those who came before us. And
Yes.
if we derelict in our duty, then whatever happens based on the government officials, whatever they come up with, the taxing, you didn't get in there and participate, so accept it And what my friend Vladimir wrote a record say, suffer and smile.
Brother, I appreciate this. Can you tell the people when you come on a radio show, and can you tell the people when that radio show comes on and what time?
Well, I
And
come on every now and then on Robert McKay show, the guy you had on. He comes on WVON every Sunday between 4 and 5 p.m.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if you know who Bob McKay was, but Bob McKay is the grandson of the man who created the Defender.
Okay.
Because, again, we don't know our history of people in our community. We live in our community, but we don't know the history of the people in our community.
Okay.
And so I would tell you every week, tune in to Robert McKay's show and listen to it. Because it's a very educational show. He gives very good information. He's very thorough. He does his homework. Is this you, Bob? You back with us? All right, Bob, you back. All right, we wondered when you disappeared. I don't know. I was just talking about your program on Sunday, to come on your program on Sunday and invite Clifton to call in.
Tell us about your program.
Yeah, it's titled Focus on WVON on Sundays at 4 p.m.
Okay. And
say the name again, Bob.
Focus. Focusing on complete and ultimate strategies, connecting the past to the present for our future. Short legs coming behind us.
Do you want to give like a telephone number? I guess they can just call WVON AM radio station in Chicago to get more information.
Yeah, come on WVON. You can pick it up on iHeartRadio as 3 p.m. I'm sorry, 5 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm on for 1 hour. And we cover the basis for the Black community. The call-in number is, you can pick it up on iHeartRadio, WVON iHeart. The call-in number is 773-591-1690. The call numbers are WVON 1690 AM.
And let me ask you something. Why I'm going to ask you the same question. Why is it important for people to participate in the Chicago mayoral election in April between Paul Vallas and Mr. Brandon? Why is it important?
You asking me?
Yes.
Well, we've had Paul Vallas here in Chicago since Richard M. Daley went into office in 1989. That was after Harold Washington. It's dark in here because I'm in the car now.
Okay.
But Daley proclaimed that he was going to correct the school system here in Chicago. Yes. He hired Arnie Duncan, who became the Secretary of Education when Obama went into office. His qualification was he had a degree in sociology. Well, I believe that's what his bachelor's degree was in, because he could play basketball quite well with Obama. Obama made him Secretary of Education. Right. But he assisted in wrecking the education system here in the public schools here in Chicago.
Yes.
Chicago public school system was successful to a degree. And when he placed them in, they started this charter program under Paul Vallas, but with Arnie Duncan, they began to remove the students out of the public neighborhood schools, and they concentrated the high achievers in what they call selective enrollment.
Yes.
Or what's the other schools? The magnet schools.
Yes.
These schools had high test scores.
Whitney Young.
And they criticized the neighborhood schools for failing in the scores. So they once these students were removed from the neighborhood schools and placed in there, and then the gentrification started. Am I still on?
Yeah, you're still on. Yes.
Yeah, they removed Richard Daley, began to remove break the neighborhoods down, break down the public housing here in Chicago. Chicago public housing represented the second largest city in the state of Illinois. We had more people in public housing in Illinois, in Chicago, than we had in Rockford, Illinois, which was the second largest city in Illinois.
Yes.
And with that, the students disappeared out of the schools. There was low enrollment. Some schools, with the charter schools brought on board, with that, some schools in the public school system only had 13 students where you could place 2,500. Once held 2,500 students. Some only had 12 and 13 students in them. And they criticized the schools for failing, which they created that scenario.
Yes.
Then you have well, I can go on and on, but and Paul Vallis was part of that whole process, that entire process. Paul Vallis implemented the charter school programs here in Chicago. I'm an alumni of Dunbar Vocational High School. That school was notorious for building Chicago bungalows. And the last one built was in 1973. And it was featured in the Ebony magazine. If you can find the July Ebony magazine of 1973, that house was in there. It was a jewel in Chicago. People were coming from out of the country to see this house the students at Dunbar had built. People's Gas made a commitment to the students at Dunbar to continue with them, to train them on how to maintain a house. And of course, the public school system didn't want that to continue, and they allowed that house to deteriorate to the point where it had to be demolished. And I have a video, a teacher from Manly High School who was at CAN TV. She took a camera by and videoed the house in major disrepair. Trees, weeds were growing up around the house. It began to fall apart because for some reason, the school board did not want that to continue. And they came through the unions. The unions are controlling the education here in Chicago and perhaps across the country. But here in Chicago, the trades, which were in CVS, Dunbar, Simeon high schools, those were taken out. And the unions began to do their training, and they invited students from the high schools to come in, but they were limited. They only wanted selected people to come in. And we can go on and on about this. This goes back.
I understand. You made me think about
But back to Paul Vallis. Paul Vallis is part of this corrupt process, the cabal, which Will stated earlier, that has sabotaged the education of our youth in the city of Chicago. And that is why we don't want Paul Vallis in there.
You know what? I have to wrap this up. I hear echo, and I want to let everybody know you're looking at the Underground Railroad television show on the internet, and we do a television show that comes on every Saturday night at 10:30 p.m. Central Time, and we come on YouTube 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I'm honored to have both of these individuals on. They are diamonds in the community that are working to make the community better. They're not Johnny come latelys. Okay. And Will, I want to thank you, consenting to come on short notice. It was just something that me that said that that this election needed to be talked about.
Well, thank you for bringing me on your show, brother. And let me just say, we just got to keep the beat goes on, as the Black Panther Party used to always say. The beat goes on, bro. Keep doing what you do.
Just please say again, when does the radio show come in? Because I want people people that look at the Underground Railroad television show, I want you to support him. Just flood him with telephone calls. He probably gets so many telephone calls already. But people that listen to my little platform, support him. Please tell us when your show comes on. Thank you.
As WVON, show is known as Focus, every Sunday. Eastern time is 5 p.m. Central Standard Time is 4 p.m. West Coast time is 2 p.m. And so I want people to tune in. You get it from iHeartRadio. And that's Robert McKay, who's on that program. He's your guest. I mean, your person whose program it is. And you can be
And I'm going to work on next Sunday having it on YouTube. I'm sorry, Facebook Live.
Thank you. What you gonna suppose you gonna say, brother Will?
I said that it's a program that people need to support, like you said, and
Yes.
I tell people they should support your program as well. They should share this video, and every time you come on, they should share it to their Facebook and any other social media platform they're on.
Okay. You know, I just again humbly I want to thank both of you for giving up your time because we can't buy any more time. And I want to say assalamu alaikum to the audience and Ramadan Mubarak to people that are going through Ramadan, whether you're looking at this presently or in the future. No, assalamu alaikum to everybody. And I want to especially thank my guests for giving up their
Well,
time. Walaikum salam. So this is
Alaikum
what we
salam
do.
to you as well, brother. Enjoy your Ramadan.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, y'all take care and thank you.
Bye now.
So you know what? I was honored to have these esteemed guests on to talk about the climate in Chicago, and I emphasized that you should get out and vote. You know what? Your ancestors, for people of color, they died. They died thinking about that. You should have Jim Crow laws. You should have all type of things that were detrimental, and it's going to be very interesting. So I think that Mr. Brandon is going to be the next mayor of Chicago. But you know what? Only Allah really knows what's going to happen. But I believe he's going to win, and it ought to be very interesting in the news about former President Donald Trump, him being indicted and being brought to task at the court Tuesday. And you're looking at this show. This is 2023. This is the second day of April. And you're looking at this show, but people, you may see it later on, but have the opportunity for people that will be in the future to use this show as a case study to understand what the people in this year was going through. So you use this. Okay. So this is what we was going through. So I'm gonna say assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi barakatuh. I'm getting ready up here, make my salats and get ready to break my fast and Ramadan Mubarak to everybody. Assalamu alaikum means peace and blessings be upon you. And thank you again to Mr. Crosby, Mr. Robert, for giving up their time because we can't buy any more time. And they thought enough to, and I want you to support his radio show. Support it. Anybody that looks at the Underground Railroad television show, whether you're watching it on internet or watching it on television, support them. Okay. Assalamu alaikum.